just to jump right into it, gentlemen, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourselves and then perhaps a little bit of insight into how you see Industry 4.0 being applied either generally in industry or for your organisation.
Well, it's working. Hi, my name is Deng Nguyen. I'm the head of solutions consulting for Boomi. I've been working in the industry of integration for more than 25 years now, and 10 of those years has been in Asia. Prior to working for Boomi, I worked for many different types of companies. Some of them are in the integration space, and some others are more end customers, and the likes of BP Trading, Shell Trading were some of them, as well as a consulting company implementing integration, KPMG being another of them.
Great. Thanks. Martin?
Hi everyone, my name is Martin Matthews. I'm from SICK Sensor Intelligence. I'm a product manager at SICK, mainly taking care of the logistic department. SICK Sensor Intelligence is basically a sensor manufacturing company. We started in 1946, it's almost 70 years. Because we are in this industry for this long, our wide portfolio help us to provide intelligent sensors and solutions to industries like logistic automation, process automation, and factory automation as well. Since we are in this sensor manufacturing field, we are in the front runners of Industry 4.0. Historically, this industry revolution going on, or evolution going on, initial sensors were not really capable as of today, but when the times goes by, the sensors are getting advanced, and we are in the front line of Industry 4.0. That's all. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kendrick from Western Digital. First 10 years of my career is really with a logistics provider, and the last 12 years is with manufacturing high-tech. So, I mean, high-tech itself, we are talking a lot about 4.0 in a sense of we do a lot of digital transformation. We are moving into like TMS, control tower concept, and so on. So a lot of our, I would say, manufacturing are also adopting or has adopted, but refining a lot of processes to take away, I would say, wastages and towards operational excellence. Yeah, so that's...
Great, thanks Kendrick. Now, you have mentioned that Industry 4.0 is usually considered the domain of manufacturing. In terms of how that applies to logistics, supply chain, perhaps we should start with a bit of a definition about Industry 4.0. Now, at IDC, we talk about Industry 4.0 as being the integration of the cyber-physical, so bringing the physical aspects of manufacturing or moving product to technology or the digital space. It is the integration of people, process, and technology with a foundation of data so that we're actually able to pull out the data from that. Now, Martin, as you are, you said you are at the ground floor of that data collection with IoT. Do you have anything to add to that with regards to a definition for Industry 4.0?
Thanks, Stephanie. Basically, you have described it quite well already. So, Industry 4.0, we are hearing for many years now, and sometimes you may feel like it's more to a marketing term. But basically, what Industry 4.0 describes is the evolution of the industry and how the modern technology advancement are using in the industry. When we talk about 4.0 and what it can do with the supply chain, we should look at we should really look at what benefit it brings to the customer. For example, in supply chain asset utilization, supply chain like warehouses use it's very intensely used assets. So this asset utilization is a very critical part. For example, predictive monitoring, predictive maintenance or conditional monitoring. All these aspects will help the companies in the warehouse or any supply chain companies to utilize the asset more. Another aspect I would like to share, or the value that it can bring to supply chain, is operational cost. Operation cost involved service cost or can be unexpected downtime of machines. So by implementing this Industry 4.0, that means sensors and the software IT together with the people, you can help customers to reduce the operation cost. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned it's a marketing term, because I remember walking out of another conference and somebody was shaking their head going, Industry 4.0, it's just the Singapore's government's way of telling us to digitalize some more. Actually, it was invented in Germany, all right? So it's not the Singapore government trying to pull your wool over the eyes of anyone. But, Kendrick, you did mention that you did start in logistics and now you're in manufacturing. In terms of the challenges that your organisation experiences from a supply chain perspective, is Industry 4.0 capabilities? I mean, it's not just one technology. It's not a box that you buy and install. It's a solution of technologies. Is your organisation turning to Industry 4.0 capabilities in order to solve some of these challenges?
For sure, I mean, Western Digital, part of the strategy that we use, it's few pillars, right? Resilient supply, we have agility in terms of how we execute, and at the back end, we always look towards operational excellence, continuous learning, continuous improvement of what we do. And that's where the Industry 4.0 comes in, when we use whatever data that we get and we translate into, it could be dashboards, right? That we use to predict and prescribe what actions that we can do. Say, for example, when we load the next container, or when we take the next truck, or should we even fly to our customer. So that agility comes in to help us make that decision, or rather the dashboards or the intelligence built in to just do that. And so that's where we want to use Industry 4.0 for. Yeah.
And then, Martin, in some of our conversations earlier, you said that there are solutions that that take those Industry 4.0 sensors or those sort of technologies and apply them directly to logistics, right? Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. Certain challenges that logistics face will be able to address using Industry 4.0, and it increase the efficiency. For example, labor. Operation-wise, labor cost is an important cost. So many of our customers or our clients, when we have the discussion, the point that they bring out is how to increase the productivity of labor and how we can improve it. So, for example, productivity, from the labor perspective, there is two things you have to make sure. The time of waiting should be limited. That means from one process to another process, the operator or the labor shouldn't be waiting there for the next section to come in. So over there, we can implement the digital integration solutions and to make it the workflow more smoother. Another way is to reduce the labor challenge is reducing the complexity of the task they do. For example, instead of operator going there to do something, the parcel or the things should come to them. Like, for example, one example I can say is the robot-human collaboration. Yeah, by introducing the new sensors and these technologies, we can do a robot-human collaboration in a close proximity, and to make sure that it's in a safe environment them to work as well. Recently, I have think about the circular economy as well. So over there, as you know, the companies are more moving towards sustainability. Yeah, previously, maybe these companies were use certain items and throw, and they are not really concerned about reusing. But now the customers are more targeted going towards the sustainability. All these things like pallets or tote they are throwing, they have to reuse. So this asset tracking is also can be used for when we go towards sustainability.
Thank you very much. Now, to just get a little bit of audience interaction here, I'd like everybody just to stand up for a second. Everybody up. Come on. All right. Everybody up, and I'd like you to stand with your arms folded like this. All right. Now, for your business, I'd like you to say how much is labour productivity important in your business? And if it's a lot, go like this. If it's not at all, go like this. Or if it's somewhere in between, you can show me. It's like a meter. All right, so how much is labor productivity important to your business? So we've got a lot that are quite like almost vertical. I think if they could go this way, they would, right? Okay, now go back to your default position. That's one. All right, now from a sustainability perspective, how much is sustainability starting to matter to your business? Again, this is like, it's part of what we live and breathe. It matters nothing at all, or it's somewhere in between. All right. All right, great. Thank you very much for your participation in my body poll. That's what that's called, a body poll. All right, thank you. So gentlemen, just to bring it back to our questions, we're talking about supporting digital transformation to address some of these challenges. I mean, we saw that labour productivity is a very important one, right? So, a lot of companies were absolutely like this. At Boomi, I think you do a lot of information automation, and there's also the physical automation. So what sort of technologies can be used to address some of these challenges?
For the challenges, I have during the course of my career visited a lot of customers and also for Boomi. And there's a lot of technologies that are mentioned many times. I can think about 10, 20 that are keep on coming back, but I'll just mention 3 that are keeping on coming really all the time. The first one will be really the multi-cloud strategy. And multi-cloud is because we have this possibility now to go into the cloud and reduce some of the cost linked to operation. And I think operation has been mentioned many times too. When we talk about cloud, we have the possibility now to export our computing power into a provider. And when we think about operational cost to your data center, there are some aspects like backup and recovery, some aspects like DR, disaster recovery procedure. This takes a lot of time. This takes a lot of energy. I don't know if you had the chance, like me, to be a part of a DR strategy project. It took weekends and weekends, a lot of resources, because you have to have all the vendors coming together on weekends to basically switch your data center to the disaster recovery side. It's a huge effort. And this is an example of where the cloud strategy plays a huge role. They take care of this for you. Another reason why you would want to go cloud, it's maybe for geographical reason. Maybe you want to open a new legal entity, and having a new data center doesn't make sense. So that's another reason. And then there's also a couple of reasons. I won't go into the detail, but we talk about multi-cloud application. And in today's world, we have to think about the application, and a lot of applications are actually better in the cloud. When we think about CRM, maybe we think about HR, we think about ITL services. There are vendors that have been proven to be better on the cloud. So this is why multi-cloud is really top of the list for the technologies. The second one that I can think of is IoT, and I think that Kendrick was talking about IoT. Sometimes it sounds decorated. Why this network of little smart devices plays a role in Industry 4.0. It's because now, more and more, even we don't think about those beacons. There's a lot of work in the manufacturing side that is done by the robots. And we need to be able to track the activity of those robots. We need to be able to act and administer those robots remotely. So this is the second aspect of the technologies that are mentioned. The third one, and I'll finish almost with this one, is, and again, Kendrick mentioned about this, big data and analytics. We have the possibility now to store and persist a lot of data in any sort of storage, and based on the information that we have, we can act, we can make decisions, and we can discover new patterns, new trends of data, and make the decision based on that. So really, those are the 3 technologies that are coming back to me. But I want to talk about a third one, very hard one, which is not always mentioned as a trend in terms of technology. It's sometimes mentioned as a challenge, and this is integration. Integration is everywhere. And when I go to talk about technologies, the stakeholder will come to me and say, okay, but I have a challenge with integration. How do I get the data from this platform, IoT platform, to this big data platform, or to this other platform? And this is why integration comes always in the discussion, sometimes as a challenge, but I would say it's a key driver. And I want to give you a little bit of story. My first integration experience when it comes to industry it was my first job as a junior. In my second month, I was coding something, and I got a call from somebody from a warehouse saying, I think your name is Deng Nguyen. Can you unblock those 2 items because my truck cannot go? And I didn't know what the guy was speaking about. So I logged into the system and I saw 2 items in the ledgers that I unblocked them. And he said, oh yeah, I can see now that I can leave my truck and go. And this is the type of transparent technology that is enabling Industry 4.0. Integration is really powering the Industry 4.0.
And I think that's really powerful. That integration is enabling the worker productivity. It reminds me of a story I was told once when I was asked, when there was a company, they had their SAP system, and when the orders come in, it needs to be transferred to the 3PL's WMS, right? And so how do they do that? They have what they call a swivel chair WMS. They take the order from the SAP, and then the person sits there and they swivel their chair and they turn around and they type it into the WMS. Right, so that's one form of integration, I guess. But no, it's obviously that's poor productivity, and we do want to make sure that we're reducing those sort of impacts. So I think integration is you talked about multi-cloud, you talked about IoT sensors. The third one was data and analytics. But I think integration is the way to bring this all together, because your data and analytics won't make sense unless you have all this joined together to get that sort of information from the sensors or from the cloud. So in terms of the technologies that are stringing it together, we are seeing cloud as being certainly a super glue technology when it comes to that, but it works when it's integrated. So in terms of getting this together, organizations need to set this at a strategic level, right? There needs to be a strategy, and putting that together, that vision or that roadmap that's going to allow this to happen is obviously very important. Kendrick, you mentioned that operational excellence is a big part of what Western Digital is doing. How did you develop a strategy for digital transformation that supported that goal of operational excellence?
Well, first really to identify the efficiencies. Efficiency, we can think of how do we take off unproductive hours. We can even think about error-free inputs into the system, or even look at how we're going to do automation of the core processes. So looking at the end in mind, then you sort of look for opportunities. So we develop or did partner on digital twin. That could be one. We also look at LogiBot, which is really a chatbot that pulls our information from our Oracle transport management system, and it sort of be our concierge to my sales, and we call them business operations support, to avoid bothering us. Hey, where's the shipment now? When is it going to arrive? Who is it going with? When they depart? And so on. So that takes away a lot of our unproductive work and move towards more strategic. Who should we use? Should we use air? Should we use ocean? Where are we going? Does a customer have that lead time that we can really drive the cost down, drive sustainability up, and so on. So these are the little intelligence that I think are practical use, but of course we need to start with the end in mind. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that the KPI, you look for the KPIs that are creating the pain, right? Or look at the metrics that you want to move to create, that are creating the pain, and then you develop a strategy around that. Yeah. Okay, that's great. And I like the idea of the LogiBot. You mentioned digital twin, and you mentioned it earlier, and it came up yesterday with the award that Western Digital got. Do you want to explain a little bit about what a digital twin is?
Okay, so digital twin is, we have 3 tracks to digital twin. One, of course, is transport. How can we ship it at the lowest cost at the fastest rate, right? Number 2, it's how can we sort of bypass the DC? What's in the network optimized area that we can sort of avoid, right? Do we ship direct to customer? Yeah, and the third one is more within the warehouse. How do we, if we change certain parameters like less labor, less forklifts, how does it look like? So when we sort of develop, or rather the innovation team sort of develop the digital twin, that's how they envision. And as users, so I'm operations, my counterparts in the innovation team will develop such things, and we play with it. Yeah, we look at opportunities, and then we find, just for one example, on the transport side, we could save like 4 million just toying around with the either different modes. You can talk about different DC that we could avoid, transit time that could be saved, and so on. So that could only be possible through having massive data behind to simulate what if scenarios that we are currently doing. Yeah. So
it's taking the data that you currently have and feeding that into a model and allowing you to simulate. So if something changes, then you reduce your labor. What's going to be the impact? That sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So. Now, I will be asking for questions shortly, so just preparing you guys. I'm not there yet, but I will be asking, so I'm expecting to see some hands, yeah? All right. Another question is, I've got, as organisations seem to maximise their effectiveness of their operations, I mean, we see that worker productivity is a big one, and operational excellence is a key part of that. How can they accelerate and optimise their B2B processes to support this? I mean, this is obviously talking about how organisations talk together. Dang, perhaps you could help us with that one.
Yes, there was a white paper published by our company about how we ensure the success in this digital transformation, and we published 5 key criteria for success, five strategy. And you may see that it's in line with what I said before in terms of technologies. So the 5 strategies are in order. The first is going to be going cloud native. First is, if you have the possibility to do this, adopt a cloud-first strategy, because this is what will allow you to fail fast, to experiment fast. And again, having worked in both of the technologies, I used to wait for days, if not weeks, for a server to be provisioned. Whereas in my last companies, when there was a need for a server to be stand up, then it takes only a couple of minutes. You just click on a button, and you can have a server of any size you want, and you can start to work straight with the server. So cloud-native strategy is really a must. The second one is, and I think it's this is in line with what Kendricks and Martin were saying, it's make sure that you have human-readable dashboards. Because you need to make sure that whatever you do, you don't waste the resources when it comes to the specialist resources. So you need a dashboard that will help you track where your orders are, the whole flow of data from your data center, for your cloud, anywhere, and from any systems. So being able to track and everything with the dashboard is really a key strategy. A third one is to make sure that you don't have your EDI. So EDI stands for electronic data interchange. So this is the technology which is behind manufacturing. So you need to make sure that this technology is not acting in silo. So technically, we have the EDI technology, and we also have your systems of information. And usually there's a gap there, because this is a different set of technology. And as soon as your as soon as your document is there in your data, not in your data center, in your systems of information, there is a gap, there is a friction here, and there is a lot of time is lost in finding out where this document is and what to do with this. So really make sure that you don't have this EDI transaction acting in silo. The fourth one is making sure that you're future-proof, again, your EDI framework. The reason for this is that there was some discussion a couple of years ago that EDI will go away because it's heavy, it's complex, and there was some new technology coming into the picture, like API, like a lot of different iPaaS. But the reality is that EDI is not going to go away. A lot of partners, a lot of different interaction is done with EDI, and it's going to stay here. But the truth is that the best way to work with EDI and the new technology is to have them working together. For instance, still having those document exchange through your EDI protocols, but at the end you can use the new technologies like event-driven architecture or API to make sure that you strengthen the whole process of purchasing, the whole process of delivery, and the whole process of payment. And the last factor, so I think okay. There is a lot, so I don't know if this is something that you have experienced, but there is a lot of time which is lost in actually onboarding the new partner. EDI are really made of complex protocols. And when I say complex, if you try to open an EDI documents, it's only specialists who can do it. And it's the same comes with onboarding. If you want to onboard a new partner, it can take days and months because you have to get the specialists involved. So one of the strategies is to have a portal to make possible the self-onboarding of the partner. So those are the 5 strategies that we like to highlight, and this is what our platform is made of. It means around those 5 strategies, we have developed the Boomi platform to make sure that we are aligned with those 5 strategies.
No, and I think it's important, and even though we tend to be a practitioner audience and we don't talk the technical a lot, right? But I think it's important to highlight that there is a technical requirement that's going to be necessary in order to integrate your suppliers, your partners, your customers. And it is important to make sure that we start pushing for technologies that are going to enable the sort of integration that we talk about. I've been on this conference circuit for 20 years now, and I still, we've been talking about integration the whole time, right? And I think most of the other grey hairs in the audience would agree. This has been a dream, and we've got the technologies that are allowing us to now finally do this. However, in order for this to happen, IT needs to hear that there's a business demand. And being able to articulate this and educate ourselves about this is quite important so that we can say, look, we do need cloud to interact with our customers, or we need some sort of cloud architecture that's going to allow that to happen. We need to be able to open up the EDI or API capabilities between our organisations to enable that communication exchange. You don't necessarily need to have the full technical knowledge, but to be able to start that with IT, you can then bring in partners to then help enable that conversation so that you can extract business value, so that you do get that productivity that we're after, right? You don't want your labour doing swivel chair WMS. You don't want your labour necessarily having to answer the calls. You want that to be able to be handled by a chatbot or something similar, right? So I think it is important, even though this is a slightly more technical explanation that we might be used to dealing with in this context, it's important to start having those conversations. Now, I did warn you, questions. Do we have any questions from the audience? Happy to answer those. There's one written down over there, apparently. You're pointing to the page. Come on, Oscar, you can do it.
Thank you. Well, guys, my question is, like, we have been hearing about Industry 4.0 for roughly 10 years, right? Before that, we have the 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, which each of them lasted roughly 100 years, right? So my question is, like, we may need to stop leapfrogging, especially in developing countries, or like emerging markets, to catch up with these companies that have started this early adoption back in 2010. So to the panelists, my question will be, how have you overcome this leapfrogging that must take part if we want to adopt 4.0, especially in Southeast Asia and certain countries?
Any takers for that one? So some companies, like, they haven't gone through Industry 1, or they might not be at a level that's sophisticated enough to adapt or to adopt Industry 4.0. They're going to have to leapfrog, right, to jump levels. Are you seeing this in some of your customers that are going from, not very sophisticated operations to adopting technologies that are beyond their current capabilities? Martin, you have something?
I just want to add one point there regarding the basic sensor level advancement Industry 4.0. So earlier, a few years back, we had this challenge about using the legacy systems or the existing solutions that they have, and how we bring out the data to the newer versions or Industry 4.0, and how we get this data. And sometimes we have challenges like, different companies use different assets are there, so it may not be compatible. But we made a very good progress over this area. We have many gateway devices, and nowadays it's much possible to get the data from the sensors and go to the cloud directly. Yeah, it's getting more easier nowadays.
Yeah. So I think when you take legacy equipment, for example, existing, it could be a rotor, it could be a production line, it could be whatever, and it may not necessarily be connected, yes, but we can attach sensors to that allow us not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but actually work on, picking up sound, picking up vibration, picking up temperature, that allows us to translate that into data that may help us with, for example, asset maintenance. Right, so building predictive models for asset, for example. And I think that's something that Sensors at SICK is certainly working with. That then allows you to feed that into systems through integration, to then develop dashboards that you can then monitor, and your engineers can start to monitor that data. So there are capabilities that allow them to do that. One thing I will say, though, is in Singapore, we tend to think we're ahead. Okay. However, we are seeing a lot of leapfrogging happening outside of Singapore. A lot of Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia are actually starting to invest in technologies that are outstripping Singapore. And this is where we get into an instance where we call technical debt. Because we've invested in a technology, we usually want to get the most out of it that we can. So we sweat the investment as much as possible. What we risk then is running behind and becoming a laggard. Right, so where we see other companies in different markets, technology is becoming cheaper. I mean, Dang and I were talking earlier, APIs are much cheaper than EDI, for example. So they're adapting to APIs instead, and then are able to run with newer technologies, whereas in Singapore, we still tend to be holding on to those technologies that we invested in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, rather than keep on moving. And I think, like you said, it's Industry 4.0. All these industries, they last for a certain period of time, but in those period of times, there's incremental improvements. And so I don't think it's just going from Industry 3 to 4. I think it's also within each generation there will be things to catch up on. So excellent question, though.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along, let's talk about the money, right? Show me the money. How do you justify the ROI, the investment? I mean, this is the question that we're always asked, right? What's the return on this, right? That you've got to build a business case. So gentlemen, I'll turn to the vendors in the room. How do you build business cases that are going to justify this to the senior management so that they'll show us the money? Yeah. Dang, Martin, I'll leave it to you.
Maybe I'll start with one thought. When we talk about digital transformation, when we talk about Industry 4.0, I will not start with the bonnet first. I will start with one question. And my question is that when we talk about housing in general, do you know what's the first cause of house collapsing or falling usually in the world? I don't know if you have any idea of what makes a house collapse.
What makes a house collapse?
Can it be a fire? Can it be, I don't know, construction?
Scott? Foundation?
I'll give the answer. The answer, in the world, the first reason for a house to collapse, it's actually termites. This is the first one. So what's dangerous about termites? It's because this is something which is transparent. It's really hidden in your house, and you don't see the effect until it really happens. So before talking about the business case and ROI, one of the first questions we often have to ask to ourselves that what will be the effect of not doing anything about digital transformation? Maybe I don't see the benefit, maybe it's hard to calculate the ROI, but if I don't do anything, what will happen? So that will be the first point that I want to raise. And this is some thought. Now I will still talk about money, about ROI, because I have to answer the question. In the past, when we have to talk about ROI for integration, it was very easy. We talked about one endpoint, two endpoints, and how easy it is to justify having an integration platform. Because as soon as you have more than 3 endpoints, it's justified an integration platform. Now it's more complex than that. But what we need to go in detail with the stakeholders we're talking to is that finding out what's the business structure, their cost structure, and then finding out which KPI based on this cost structure will make sense to measure. Because what we want is we want our customer to be successful, but we want to be able to measure the success. So based on this pillar that we'll define with the customer, it can be operation, it can be project delivery, it can be anything else. We just align with the customer on finding out some key KPI, and we'll based on those KPI, we'll handle and we'll measure the success as we go along the way with digital transformation. So there is no magic number that we can throw, but this is the way to proceed for ROI and for measuring it.
Great. Martin, did you have anything to add to that?
I have a slight, for me from the sensor manufacturing and as a solution consultant, many of the times that we face difficulties when we talk to customers is, getting the project approved on this automation. So I have a slightly different suggestions, like, we need to understand the internal competition as well. Not only people want to automate their facility for Industry 4.0, there are other parties as well. For example, the transport manager want to buy more fleets, and the IT manager want to install new software, upgrade something, or the purchasing want to keep up the stock. So most of the time, many of the organizations, many internal departments are fighting for the same budget. So as a Industry 4.0, if you want to automate your facility or your warehouse, we need to really think back, and we need to really justify our request based on many factors, like how it's going to improve the customer satisfaction, or how the laborers get their job easier, or how effectively the data that we can get can be effectively transferred to another form of a dashboard. So understanding the other initiative also will be useful in this aspect.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add there, Kendrick?
Not really, but I would say that to get the ROI, I think it's really trying to understand what's the end in mind. Don't be too ambitious. We can always do little iterations, continuous improvement. That's what we do well, and at least you see little fruits, and you can pat yourself on the back. Yeah.
And I think that relates quite well to one of the points that was raised yesterday, that digital transformation is continuous improvement, right? And so I think it's important to remember that. One of the things that we also note is usually a lot of these technologies is not bought for one purpose, okay? So even whether it's a TCM or whether you're investing in sensors, you can scale that investment, right? So the information that you get out of a sensor in order to optimize it and predict when an asset is going to fail, for example, you can actually use that to also work out what is its energy usage, potentially, or is it being run at the most efficient level, which if it degrades, then it will increase in energy usage and work counter to some of your sustainability goals, right? So you can have one investment that's going to drive multiple KPIs in your organization, and that's how you start to get allies within the organization and scale that investment, right? So it's not just about trying to move the needle on one point, right? You need to find a few points, a few pressure points that are going to enable you to get the allies internally that's going to allow that investment to occur, yeah? All right, just wrapping up. We are close to time, so I do want to keep that on time. Do we have any more questions from the audience before we do, though? Any more? Nope. Going once? Going twice? Sold. All right. The last question is, gentlemen, in adopting Industry 4.0, we've heard that it's a journey. We've heard that there's, cloud is necessary. We've heard that there's a push to automation, that people really want to drive worker productivity. Is there any last advice you would give people that are starting to embark on this and are looking to make an impact with Industry 4.0 investments? Kendrick, perhaps I'll start with you.
I would say start something, and start now, right? Start something small. It can be small, and allow it to fail fast if needs be, and pull out whatever you don't want to waste. Yeah. So that's my peers in the technology side, the innovation side is always doing that, right? They come up with silly, not silly, but really innovative ideas. They can talk about RPA, they talk about all different trials for things, and operation side will just test it, and if it doesn't work, we'll stop it. Yeah, so just start small.
Martin?
Yeah, that exactly I want to say as well. Like we have to think big and we have to do small steps. What I see in the Southeast Asian countries, especially like as you mentioned, we are not only talking about Singapore. They are adapting as well. So they do the small steps first. Maybe on the first day they won't they won't go to AI or something, but they can start in the beginning level. Yeah. So think big and do small steps. Thank you.
Great. Deng?
I think on the same line, it's good to embrace agility, and one of the main focus of agility is the capability to fail fast. So really start somewhere. There is now a multitude of solutions in the cloud, or not even in the cloud, but everywhere, that will allow you to gain some momentum and some knowledge on some area that you thought was impossible before. And again, I'm going to talk about integration. Integration was before something that was only for the very, very large companies. Now integration is for even smaller company, and there are solutions for integration even if you're a very small company. So you shouldn't be afraid of starting somewhere with a digital transformation.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to note that, you know, this is for everybody. IDC's March resiliency survey actually showed that 57% of organizations have already started putting together a technology roadmap, right? So if you're not already on the road, I think you need to get on the road, because otherwise you could be left behind in somebody else's dust. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you to my panelists. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you all for your participation in my body poll, and back to you, Bob.